My current project title is Walking in Somebody Else's Shoes, and this examines discarded items and displacement. This was inspired by my trip to the shoes on the Danube sculpture, and also the wider context of the displaced person and refugee crisis, and the discarded items left behind by these individuals and the narratives and experiences that these items reveal. So I conducted my own sort of examination of discarded items within my environment, discarded shoes from the clothes bin, and sort of the narrative and story that these told. So I explored that. This led on to me exploring further discarded items within my environment. So I was collaging these, just exploring composition really. And sort of the textures and surfaces of these. I then went on to weaving and collaging further with these discarded items, again examining the potential texture of these discarded items, and sort of giving them a new narrative and a new purpose within a piece of artwork. And this is later, the purpose would be to be worn. This also led on to me really examining the definition of displacement, what this word means. So I was physically and forcibly displacing items that I'd found within my environment. So in this case, it was rope, and just again looking at the texture and the distortion of this. So incorporating all of my sort of collection of discarded items, I created a composition which I then put into a plaster cast. So I created a mould. This examined the textures and surfaces of these discarded items, again looking at composition and examining really how it feels to walk in somebody else's shoes, and do we really understand somebody else's experiences. So I then went on to model these forms on the figure, again looking at distorting, completely overwhelming and displacing the person's identity with these discarded items. This went on to my artist inspiration, so Nick Cave, examining his sound suit collection and the concept of unfamiliarity and displacement that this examined. So he used all discarded items with his work, and again examined what it feels like to be insignificant and overwhelmed and discarded yourself. And this is really what I wanted to portray within my own work. So I began to overwhelm the form with these discarded items, so digitally and both physically, cut and pasting, etc., with discarded items found in my workshop space. So this is looking at alternative materials and textures and surfaces using metallic and metal forms and items. Again, so a series of swatches using electrical wires, washers, hinges, etc., examining how these looked on the form. This was again modelling swatches on my figure and how this overwhelmed and distorted the form and displaced my identity. Looking at mark making, more mark making, and this was my sort of initial idea for my own displacement suit, which would combine these swatches and completely distort and overwhelm someone's identity. So this was basis for my structure. 8 drawings in 8 minutes, so really quick task, just playing around with my initial ideas. Again, further initial ideas. Here's my raku workshop, which was working with further texture and surfaces from my discarded items, again exploring colour within this and the potential of this to overwhelm the figure and form and display someone's identity. This then led on to further swatches, me modelling this, again exploring metal and alternative materials. This was my base structure for my displacement suit, and then I sort of explored via collage what this would look like, reverting back to Nick Cave, always in my artist inspiration. Modelling my raku and the potential of this to be incorporated within my displacement suit. Again, further initial designs, looking at how my swatches distorted the natural figure, comparing texture of skin and unnatural texture of metal. More mark making. This is my swatches which examined discarded yarns, etc., and I was just again looking at the potential of incorporating this within my displacement suit. So further mark making, I went on to examine potential of creating cuffs to further distort the lower body. These are more sort of initial designs, reflection on my piece. Looking at arm knitting and the potential to display someone's figure with this. Again, more initial designs and reflection on my outcome. And then there is my drawings inspired by Oskar Schlemmer of my final piece, examining the movement, sound and scale of this and the fluidity of the body. These are my cuffs modelled, and then this is also my final sound suit, my own displacement suit, reflecting on the sound suit collection, which explores scale, sound, movement and distortion of the figure, as well as displacement. And then these are sort of reflective designs examining the movement of my final piece.